Okay, next one to you first, Reese.
What priority have you given welfare fraud? What is your conviction rate and recovery rate? What priority have you given welfare fraud? What is your conviction rate and recovery rate?
Well, cases like welfare fraud, I'm the primary prosecutor in my county that does those. And the reason is I like complex cases, I like financial cases, and so when somebody in my county goes to me with a welfare fraud case, even a benefits fraud, benefits theft case, they're actually investigated by a separate entity, a civil entity. They bring those to me. I've got a 100% conviction rate on those type of cases. And my recovery rate is pretty high. Typically it depends on what kind of criminal disposition you make on something like that. I want the taxpayer to see their money. If a person pays the money up front, I'll give them a better deal on that type of case. And that's important to me to make sure that the taxpayer gets recovery. I've done a lot of financial cases. I prosecuted one of the most complex financial cases in the history of Kanabec County, where a gentleman stole $600,000 from a number of people. These cases require a lot of skill, a lot of time. I spent months on this case and got a conviction, sent the guy to prison. There's no way we'll ever get the money from this guy, but a lot of victims were made whole, at least by that conviction. One of the individuals I should know too was a 92-year-old gentleman. This guy scammed him out of $190,000 with life savings. I think about that case all the time. I'm very passionate about those type of cases, vulnerable adult cases, cases where senior citizens are being scammed out of money, and especially anytime the taxpayer is being scammed out of their money, because we work hard for that money. We want to make sure that it's working hard for us.
Thank you. Steve, what priority have you given welfare fraud? What is your conviction rate and recovery rate?
We typically do not prioritize cases in the office. The exception would be an extremely violent felony, a homicide, an assault, something like that. Obviously, those are going to the top of the list, and those are going to get the greatest amount of attention. But our office takes every case seriously. With regard to welfare fraud, we're extremely fortunate to have an investigator working in the Sheriff's Department that I can say without any hesitation whatsoever, she is a bulldog. She does some of the best, most complete, accurate reports I've ever seen. And we've even had a judge. I just finished a case like this. We just had a person plead guilty to a fraud, ironically, that was came about from staff here at Pine Tech when she came in and filed some fraudulent documents. But because of this investigator's work, we have what's called settlement conferences before jury trials, where the attorneys and the judge get together to talk about the case. And the judge actually made the comment in the settlement conferences, you do know how good this investigator is, and the juries just love it. That type of skill and that investigation is what has made the welfare fraud cases in our office so good, because they come together in a package, and she puts it together extremely well, and then it's right there on paper. Off the top of my head, I don't know what the conviction rate is for our welfare fraud cases, but I know working with this particular officer, I would hazard to guess that it's probably close to 100%.
Okay. Thank you. If some of our staff help you solve the case, will we get any kind of...
Well, unfortunately, because it's government money, I think they'd probably take offense to that.
Okay, next question goes to Steve first. The county attorney also serves as the advisor to the county board. What is your legal experience outside the courtroom?
My legal experience outside the courtroom, as I indicated, I started out my legal career actually before I was even a lawyer. I told you I worked for the Saginaw Chippewa Band in Mount Pleasant, Michigan, and we drafted their tribal marriage and divorce code. I also drafted their domestic violence code. So I have experience with actually writing statutes that have been used. Additionally, as I mentioned earlier, there was a dire need for the automated pond system in Pine County. And just to further clarify exactly what that is, it's a system that I think has been invaluable in solving crime. Statistically, burglaries are one of the most difficult cases to solve. Statistically, in rural counties, only 17% of burglaries are solved. But this automated pond system is a system wherein when someone brings in property to a pawn shop, they get their picture taken. They get their ID taken. They also take photographs of unique objects, serial numbers of items with serial numbers. Because of that, when people come into the pawn shop, we can figure out who they are and what the property is. Police officers can look it up in a system. Within the first 6 months of Pine County being on this system, we had a career felon that stole 5 guns, pawned them at 3 separate pawn shops down in the metropolitan area. Because of that, we were able to prosecute this man. We went to trial. The pawnbrokers came in and testified. We had his picture. We had his driver's license. We had the guns. We had the victims. And this guy was convicted of felon in possession of a firearm. Outside of drafting statutes and ordinances, I told you I worked for the Indian Legal Assistance Program in Duluth. There, we also did divorce. We did child custody. We did children in need of protection services, which I've also done in the county. We did domestic abuse, no contact orders. I can safely say I have done just about every task in a Pine County or in a county attorney's office there is. I've also done numerous tasks that are in the civil realm, like divorce and child custody. But child custody, believe it or not, and support is also something that does end up in the county system as well. But so I do have a large volume of knowledge of civil law outside of the Pine County attorney's office.
Reese, the county attorney also serves as the advisor to the county board. What is your legal experience outside the courtroom?
I would say my legal experience outside the courtroom is vast. I have actually worked at a civil law firm in Minneapolis where we did complex litigation. I did complex civil transaction law for that firm. I've also drafted numerous ordinances. I've drafted legislation for Minnesota. I've actually testified before the legislature in Minnesota numerous times on bills that would help reduce costs for rural counties. I've got experience in every aspect of a county attorney's office. I've done everything from child support, paternities, abatements, highway condemnations. I've done commitments. I did a commitment trial once where a guy tried to shoot a bunch of my cops. He was declared mentally unfit. I sent him to a civil commitment facility. That was a lengthy trial. I've done child protection actions. I've done child in need of protection, other type of issues, drafted contracts for that. I've drafted contracts for the civil aspect of the county. So I've done every type of case that you could do in a county attorney's office, and that's actually one of the benefits of being in a rural county. I should also note too that I have experience with labor issues. You might be concerned to hear this. About $50,000 to $60,000 a year is spent in taxpayer money on a civil law attorney to handle labor issues. Separately, the county attorney's office should have the training to advise on labor issues. Instead, I was told that the customer performance or the customer care was so bad that they actually had to spend extra money to hire an outside firm to help them out. That's a lot of money that's being expended when that could be done in-house. And that's something that I would require my prosecutors, my county attorneys, to have more civil law experience.